Welcome back to Coffee and Conversation. So for all you Audie fans, he is asleep, as he has been for a long time. But today, he actually earned his rest because it's a beautiful sunny day out. So a little cat has to go out and enjoy the sunshine. But I watched him doing it today, and there's a lot of work involved in getting up out of bed and going out the front door, because he has to rouse himself from that very comfortable little nest he has at the foot of the bed. And it's two really soft feather pillows, and I throw a fuzzy blanket over top of them, and he sleeps in a patch of sunshine from the window. So this is wonderful, but he has to extricate himself from this space of wonderfulness, hop off the bed, walk into the living room, yell at me to let him out, then go out, enjoy some sunshine, come back, hop up on the porch railing, yell at me some more until I let him in, then eat, then go back into the bed again. So it's a process for a little cat. And I think at this point, after having gone out 3 or 4 times already today, he's completely exhausted. So my heart is breaking for him. We'll have to see if he shows up. Very often when he hears me speaking to the camera, it will trigger his photobomb urge, and he will hop out of the bed, come in, yell at me, jump in my lap, and get his share of the public attention. We'll have to see. All right, we will be right back. So before we get started, I wanted to draw your attention to this sweater. Now, I'm sure you will all remember the one that just Audie christened with 3 very large claw marks on the front. The reason I wasn't excessively brokenhearted, even though I do love that sweater, when he just climbed his way up onto my shoulder and left the evidence on my sweater, is because I have this one. I bought it at the same time from the same store. By the way, they both came from Macy's. And it's the same color, the same fabric. The only difference is this one is a turtleneck. So I have a backup piece. And that's why I was able to sort of take the trashing my sweater episode in stride. But I thought I would show it to you so that you would understand that even though I'm not happy with Audie for that climbing up onto my shoulder fiasco, I still have another sweater, so I can't be too angry with him. All right, today I wanted to talk about something that I came across recently, because, I'm not on social media, well, with the exception of YouTube, which is social media. It's like, yeah, I know, when I do it, I go all the way. Other than YouTube, I am not on social media, so I don't pay a lot of attention to social media trends. But I came across a new one recently. Someone had made a passing reference to it, and I did a little research. And this new thing is called Doomscrolling. Now, it's not really new. Those of us who were, and I have to speak in the United States because that's where I was. Don't know what was going on in the rest of the world. But in the U.S., we had troops in Vietnam. And the nightly news, night after night after night, was full of Vietnam updates. We even got a body count at the end of the week. It was grim. So what people are talking about when they say doom scrolling now, I just look back and say, yeah, that was like the CBS nightly news back in 1969. So am I finding this new? Am I finding this earth-shattering? No, of course not. But it does seem to be a thing among the social media obsessed generation that's out there now. And what doom scrolling is repeated, consistent, consumption of social media content on very frightening and potentially distressing topics. So I thought about that, and I have been guilty of doomscrolling. Isn't it lovely? There's a word for it. Quite a lot lately. And the thing is, now here's where I have a problem with their definition. I actually have a specific purpose in my doomscrolling. It's not just because, oh, this is a new trend and I'm going to jump on it. Yeah, this is probably not a trend worth jumping on. But I have been very concerned for the last year about conditions in the UK. As I'm sure those of you in the US are probably aware, a fair percentage of our community resides in the UK, in England, in Scotland, in Wales, in Ireland. Another fair percentage is in Australia. And because that's a Commonwealth nation, they do pay more attention to what's going on in the UK than perhaps we in the US do. But I was concerned. My concerns started when I came across headlines in the UK, and this would have been I believe the 23-24 winter, headlines saying heat or eat, that the economic conditions had gotten bad and heating costs had escalated, and our UK cousins were having trouble balancing their grocery budget with their heating bills. And that's where it started. And I started looking at conditions in the UK from that period onward a little more carefully. And I would say about a year ago, after, well, I don't want to call it an in-depth examination of UK news, because it was not. It was just sort of casually monitoring to see if there were trends, if there's something going on that I in the US am not aware of, and perhaps I should be. And the reason for this, we should all be, by the way, just saying, all of those in the US should be aware of what is going on with our near neighbors and allies, because if they're having a bad time, remember, our government is giving aid to a whole lot of countries that would be just as happy if we exploded and disintegrated into dust next year. The fact is, if we're going to be giving aid, I personally would just as soon that aid go to our allies first. Consequently, I pay attention to what's going on in the UK. I pay attention to what's going on in Australia, in New Zealand. These are, also Canada. The English-speaking world, let me just throw that umbrella over it, because this represents our nearest allies. This represents the people who stand with us when no one else will. So if we're doling out aid, boy, I want them first on the list. And if they are in need of aid, I want my representatives to be aware of this so that when they go into Washington, they can start jostling for increased aid for whatever it is that our allies need. That's what we should be doing instead of handing our money to people who loathe and despise us. I know, that probably makes me sound very politically conservative. No. I don't see it that way. I just see it as, don't pee on my shoes and then hold your hand out for money. That's all. I consider it just good manners. So that is what drove me to this. And then I started reading about immigration problems, something called grooming gangs. And I got to tell you, I looked into that, and boy, do I dislike that term. You see, for me, grooming is, getting up in the morning, washing your face, combing your hair, shining your shoes, brushing the lint off your clothing, a whole bunch of things that I consider very good. This is part of the social contract. You know, we try to go out the front door in the morning, not looking like the rag picker's child. And so grooming is very positive. But what grooming gangs refer to is apparently gangs of people, well, I don't even want to call them people, gangs of predators who are targeting vulnerable people, mostly younger, for the purposes of eventually abusing them in a sexual way. But I don't like when they pretty it up and call it grooming gangs. You know, we have words for this, and the fact that I might not be able to use them on YouTube. One of them starts with R and rhymes with Scotch tape. That's what kind of gangs we're talking about. We are not talking about people. And I have to tell you, grooming gangs, my first thought is people going out into the community with a comb in one hand and a lint brush in the other. That's not what this is. And I don't like that the media is prettying it up. Gosh, I love euphemisms as much as the next guy, but not when it comes to sugarcoating criminal activity. So I started reading about that. I started reading about a great deal of unrest among immigrant populations throughout Europe. And that is what got me into this doom scrolling. I know we're way past make a long story short on this one. But obviously, as you can see from the backstory, it's not about doom scrolling. It's not about intentionally looking up dark and dismal news. My intent was to find out what's going on in Europe, specifically in the UK, that we might not be aware of, that our media might not be sharing with us here in the US. So that's where it started. And then it led to all of the immigration unrest throughout Europe. YouTube, consequently, because YouTube uses algorithms, if they see that I watch 2 or 3 videos about this, they start loading my feed with even more videos on this subject. So, doom scrolling, I have to say, is largely the result of algorithms. They won't tell you this, but that is the truth. If you watch 1 or 2, well, depressing videos, because it is doom scrolling after all, but 1 or 2 videos that are dealing with news about unpleasant events somewhere, anywhere, YouTube is going to feed you more videos in the same vein. Why? Because you've already proven this is what you're looking at. This is what you're looking for. You like it enough to watch it. And it's not just YouTube. TikTok will do the same thing. Fortunately, our local television stations haven't gotten that bad yet, but it's only a matter of time. So I would have to say that even though I dislike the way in which this is being phrased and packaged, I do have some concerns about doom scrolling, mostly because I do not think it's appropriate for any social media platform to continually feed anyone negative content, regardless of what they are looking for. I think if their algorithms are sophisticated enough to be throwing us this content in the first place, they are also sophisticated enough to be throwing balanced content at us. You know, in other words, an algorithm that says, I watched a video on Denmark tightening their immigration laws, the UK having civil unrest in places like Birmingham. I understand it's pretty bad in Birmingham. Sweden, with some very serious problems with immigrant populations. I watched 2 of those videos, 3 of those videos. The algorithm that can feed me more can also feed me more balanced content. Doesn't have to be all about immigration-related issues. They could just as easily feed me ABBA videos if I've been watching, political unrest in Sweden. Oh, by the way, I'd be just as happy with ABBA videos. No problem there. So I do think that when people say that social media users, people who are routinely watching TikTok, YouTube, whatever, that they are choosing to doom scroll, that's probably not 100% accurate. What's probably happening is they are being fed a disproportionate amount of content based on some initial content choices. And the platforms don't have to do that. So I think by actually putting the responsibility on the individual doom scroller, you are addicted to this. Maybe not. Maybe they are not choosing this. I know I am not actively choosing nothing but doom and gloom videos, but I do know that because I watched a few, that is the choice they are giving me. Interestingly enough, at the same time they are giving me YouTube videos on Jehovah's Witnesses, because I checked in on a channel I used to follow. This channel was started by a former Jehovah's Witness who is trying to reach out to his former co-religionists and try to, extricate them politely and at a distance, but still, his goal is to try to make them aware of the fact that they are in a cultish religion. So I watched one of his videos, and then I started getting not only more of his videos, but more of other videos, also by former Jehovah's Witnesses. So, yeah, I could follow the trend easily when it was those two topics that began dominating, these selections YouTube was offering to me. So, what's up with doom scrolling? Well, as I just said, I don't think people are making an intentional choice, certainly not in every instance, because I know I wasn't. I believe that the people who are analyzing this right now are correct, that a constant flow of negative information does have potential mental health impacts. If all you see is dark and gloomy news, you are going to have raised anxiety levels, raised stress levels, raised depression levels. Of course you are. And we all know this if we lived through the late 60s and remember what the news was like. There was a point at which I simply refused to watch the news. I stopped watching, made a conscious choice not to view that content anymore. When my family would have the news on, I would go into the other room. By the way, in those days, for those of you who are younger, there was like one television and everybody shared it. It wasn't as if we each had our own little screen in our own little pocket. No, television watching was a communal event. I would just go into the other room. I had enough sense, even as a teenager, to just say no, because I understood that it wasn't a productive use of my time. Yes, I probably was somewhat isolated from other types of news. I probably still am today. But if they were simply going to show me war statistics, I wasn't going to play. That's all there was to it. So I look at this and think, yes, it is damaging. The experts are correct. The mental health implications are there. However, they don't seem to have they don't seem to have very good concrete strategies for dealing with this. But there are plenty of concrete strategies for dealing with this. The ones the experts are offering, because Frankly, these are probably not experts in the field of mental health as much as they are experts in the field of social media. If you find yourself getting all kinds of negative content in your feed, this is where it starts. We're going to take it from the top. Whatever platform you are on is constantly feeding you negative videos. Don't buy it. Just go in, even if you have to use the search engine up at the top of the page. Say, I want cat videos, or whatever, choose your poison. I want cat videos. I want comedy routines. What is his name? Michael McIntyre. It's a British comedian. He is like insane, laugh out loud funny. Go check out his videos. Check out others. I recently just saw a video by Jeff Foxworthy on YouTube, and I hadn't even heard Jeff Foxworthy's name mentioned in, Lord, decades. I didn't think he was still around. YouTube offered me a video. Find videos that will make you smile instead. Now, I'm not saying you can't doom scroll. You want to doom scroll, you go right ahead. But if this is bothering you, add some cat videos into the mix. Add some comedy videos into the mix. You can watch 2 or 3 doom and gloom videos, but then watch Jeff Foxworthy, Michael McIntyre, cats. There are videos of cats that have curled up in people's shoes. That's so adorable. Find something else. Make sure you have a variety of content. And that's on you as the user. But once you do it, once you start selecting videos that will put a smile on your face instead, the algorithm will catch that too. Remember, it's the algorithm that started feeding you doom and gloom videos because you happen to watch one news broadcast. You can break that cycle. You don't have to break it completely. You could just force them to show you cat videos while they are offering you world news events videos. It's very easy. And then you will have a choice. But again, in the end, it is up to you. Either you take that choice. If they offer you 3 news videos and 1 cat video, it's up to you to grab that 1 cat video. It's up to you to grab that 1 Michael McIntyre video. Not saying you can't watch the news. Just mix it up. The fact is that we all do need to be aware of what's going on in the world, even when it's not pleasant. I'm going to give you an example. I just told you I stopped watching the news back in the 1960s. So I didn't know that my country was at war in the Middle East for like 48 hours. That's a little disturbing because this is the 21st century. And how can I not know something important for like 2 days? So I'm not saying you should hide under a rock like I did. That's not advice I would give anyone. But certainly make sure there's a balance available. If you feel yourself becoming depressed, becoming anxious, even just a little bit, then up the percentage of those cat videos, up the percentage of Jeff Foxworthy or Michael McIntyre, or choose your comedian of choice. Go for it. You can have both. It's not an either-or proposition. You don't have to detox completely from social media. The truth of the matter is a lot of people get older, and for a lot of reasons. Many of them are involving our physical ability to get up, walk out the front door, and integrate in person with the rest of the world. Some of us have mobility impairment. Some of us have health issues. Sometimes that screen is our only connection with the rest of the world. And as such, it is a godsend. You don't have to walk away from it altogether. But the great thing is you have more control over the content than you may realize. So just exercise that control. If you want to try to stay away from the screens, there are so many ways you can do this. You can schedule little periods of time. We talked about this, 2 weeks ago, I think 2 weeks ago, when I spoke about how our muscles will behave differently if we spend too much time sitting, and we need to get up and move around. The rule of thumb is a couple of minutes every half hour. I tend to consolidate that with, say, 5 minutes per hour, which is probably safe for anyone in reasonably good health. But we should be getting up and moving around. If you find that you are having difficulty tearing yourself away from the screen, remember, you have to get up and do a little moving to begin with. So use that 2, 3, 5 minutes, whatever block of time you've designated for moving, so you don't have physical problems. Use that as your reset. If you've been watching videos that are charging your anxiety levels or heightening your sense of fatality and depression, get up, walk around for a few minutes, and when you sit back down again, try checking out different content. You can actually sit down and regiment this. You can say, I will allow myself X number of minutes of news content per day. That's it. The rest of it is going to have to be entertainment content. Nothing wrong with that. I remember it used to be the other way around. We used to allow ourselves a certain amount of entertainment content and then force ourselves to go over to PBS for, an hour a day. The fact is, we are all very dependent on the media, the mainstream media, the television, YouTube, TikTok, Instagram, Facebook, whatever, the social media realm. We are dependent on this. We have had a greater dependency on this in the post-COVID period than we did before, because when we were in lockdown, that was all of our socialization. We really didn't have other options. For a lot of us, we were able to take some positive things from that and incorporate that into our new normal. So yes, we can get out again, but we got some good things from that COVID enforced media use. I found a lot of very good channels on YouTube in which I can look at history, I can look at the arts, and these are all sort of on my short list of YouTube channels I go to regularly. There's nothing wrong with that. I was able to turn my YouTube watching into sort of nonstop A&E/PBS. For my friends overseas, A&E is Arts and Entertainment, PBS Public Broadcasting Systems. This is the arts and entertainment plus the documentaries, the science programs, the educational programming. So I was able to just draw that from YouTube. The algorithm never quite caught on to my interest in those channels. And I'm not sure why. I think maybe it wasn't quite as good back in 2020 when we were in lockdown and that's what I was looking at. Perhaps the algorithms were not sufficiently sophisticated. But I do that now. I'm not giving those things up. Also, I am not giving up the programming that I have been watching about world events. I am a lot more critical of it because I am looking at some of these YouTube channels, and I'm seeing that many of them are using AI voices and what sounds to me like AI scripts. I don't like that part. So I'm pickier. I go to people, humans, people who will actually sit in front of a camera and talk to me one-on-one, because some of them are very, very good. There is a young man from the Netherlands who has, I'm not remembering off the top of my head, young man from the Netherlands who has a great YouTube channel about world events. In effect, it's just his take on world events, but he seems to be a very good researcher, and he is presenting very good information. So that's just one example of an AI alternative. But I would absolutely say, be critical of what you are watching. AI, you hear an AI voice, they will very often speak in the wrong cadence. They will say things like, and they'll just sort of trail off somewhere, end sentences incorrectly, mispronounce common words or names. That's one of the great giveaways. They're also, some of them are so good that now they're using human images, and it can be very, very hard to tell them apart. But be careful, because there is a tremendous amount of AI content in the realm of news broadcasting on YouTube. Just know that going in. But I did want to touch on this whole concept of doom scrolling, because I think that a lot of us are doom scrolling kind of by accident. We got into it by accident. I know I did. We stayed there because it was giving us content that had been of interest to us, but moving away from that content often takes a lot more work than simply clicking on the next video and the next. You actually have to type in something in the search engine. But I've already handed you a couple of strategies for getting away from it. Mix it in with more entertaining videos, and use your little get up and walk around breaks in order to reset, refocus, get into something different when you sit back down again. You can also regulate it by saying, I'm only going to watch 30 minutes of this sort of content and then move on to something else. There are many ways we can do it. Ultimately, and this is important, but we know this because we're all adults, ultimately, it's up to you to decide what you want to watch. I would say, even if you love the daylights out of doom scrolling, don't let the algorithm tell you what to do. Be contrary enough so that you can't be predictable to the algorithm. Also, there's a very easy way to foil the algorithm. All you have to do is just delete your search. Go into YouTube and just clear your search history with them. It's very easy. YouTube will show you how to do it. But don't let someone else push this off on you. If this is something you really want, hey, free country, still, hopefully, at least for now, watch what you want to watch. But if this content is bothering you, there are a lot of ways you can just say no. All right. So that is what I have for you today. Thank you for being with us. I'm sorry Audie wasn't out, but I guess he just found going out and sleeping in the sunshine to be too exhausting for a little cat, and he had to take a break. Poor baby. All right, I look forward to seeing you next time. For those of you who follow the Just Chattin' videos, they are 8 o'clock New York City time this evening. We're going to take a look at a slideshow on the way out, and in the meanwhile, have a terrific day.